identifying and explaining angle relationships and looking at explaining how they're cut by a transversal. That'll be tomorrow or Monday with the transversal. Today we're just going to be looking at these. And some of these you had last year. So a straight angle. Straight angle is going to be how many degrees? 180. 80. You guys all know a right angle is 90. Now, these are the two that people sometimes get mixed up, the complementary and supplementary. So I want you to think about this is supplementary is a lot like the 180, like our straight angle. Supplementary is when two angles have to add to 180. So when you look at this picture up here, can you tell me, and it always has to be two angles, so they would make 180. So angle 5 and angle what? 1. Could I have had angle 5 and angle what else? 2. So I would have taken either one of these. This is 2 pairs. They just asked us for 1 pair. So when you're holding it, they ask you for a pair. That would be like the 5-1 or the 5-2. Both would be correct, right? When we talk about complementary angles are 2 angles that are going to sum to 90. So the reason we are going through this vocab of the type of angles is that in your homework you're going to often be asked why, what is the reason for that measure? So you have to give a reason with each one, kind of have to justify it. So when I look at this one, what are my only 2 options that are complementary up here? Angle 3 and 4. Okay? Then the new one, did you guys have vertical angles at all last year? Anyone remember vertical angles? I think that's a newer one this year. Vertical angles are 2 angles, and this is what it says, that are vertical to each other. And this is, as you are reading this, it says 2 angles that are opposite when 2 lines cross. So if I'm thinking about this, it has to be 2 lines crossing. Okay? And that these 2 angles, this angle up here and this angle, are considered vertical angles, ones that are across from each other. Or it could be this angle over here and this one. And what's nice about those is when you are looking at that, is that they share the same vertex. So when you're looking at it, they have the same vertex here. And so in our picture, there's only really 1 set that is vertical. It looks like there maybe could be more. Jericho, what do you think? 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Okay? So 1 and 2 as you are looking at that. All right, so here's a picture. We're going to be looking at this picture, doing some of the different types of angles going around. But here's what I want you to look at first. I want to show you this website. I attached this website on the daily planner so that you can look at it, and it says, so you can move these different ones, and what do you notice about vertical angles? So the 2 angles that are across from each other are vertical. This one at 99, this one at 99, 81 and 81. Vertical angles are always going to be congruent or equal, and it doesn't matter if I move point B, how I move point B along here. It doesn't matter if I move point D, as long as my 2 lines intersect, I'm going to notice that those angles are always, always, always the same measure. Vertical angles will always be equal, okay? And what do we notice about these 2 angles? These 2 angles are what? When they're right next to each other in the same line, they are, just had that vocabulary, they were what? So, no. These 2 are vertical, 27, 27, these 2. What do I know about 27 and 153? They are supplementary. And if you add 27 and 153, they add to 180. And if I add any time, if I would move any of these, right, 101 and 79 adds to 180. So supplementary add to 180. And when we are looking at our picture, vertical are across. So in this picture, they are asked, list the pairs that are supplementary. I could have angle. This is my symbol for angle. Angle 5 and what? And 4. Or I could have had angle 5 and angle 1. Complementary. Look where your right angle is. Should be looking at angle 3 and 4. Now 2 is just a 90-degree angle, but it doesn't have two angles. So 2 is a right angle, but because this is along this straight line, that means right over here, this would have also been a right angle, right? So 3 and 4 are also going to add to 90. Vertical. Angle 1 and angle 4 have to be where two lines intersect and they share the same vertex. So here's my vertex, right? 1 and 4 share the same vertex, and I can see the two lines. Whereas this one is just kind of like a ray. Here are some ways to help you remember complementary and supplementary. The C, if you can think of that's the corner of your right angle. So anytime you have a corner, your two angles have to total to 90 degrees. The other thing I like students to think about is it comes first in your alphabet, which means it's the smaller number, 90 degrees, whereas the larger S is going to be equal always to 180. Question?
Is this new?
What's that?
Is this new?
Some of this should be from last year that you had. Well, some of it's new. Yeah. So, as we are taking a look, you are asked to do two things. You have to find the missing angle, and then you have to explain. So, first off, because these two are along a straight line, what would the name of those two angles be called? Supplementary. So please write supplementary. And now we take 180 and minus 30 and we get 150 degrees. How is this angle here at V related to the 30? They are vertical. So if we are looking at this one, we're going to put vertical. And if they are vertical, the nice thing about that is they have to be equal in measure. 30 degrees. Here, along a straight line, it's not a straight angle, but two angles, so it has to be supplementary. Now, there have been times when, with this unit, that I have had students, if they are looking at this, I have had them, I'll put the Quizlet up soon for this also, so you can study all the different types of angles and the ones we're going to do Monday. But now, and sometimes some people like to show this work that you're going to take 180 minus 100, so that's why this is equal to 80 degrees, because 180 minus that. You don't have to show that to me. I'm okay that you do calculations in your head and just tell me what the answer is. So when I look at letter F down here, F, how are those two angles related? They are complementary. And which means my angle should be 40 degrees. 40 degrees. What is angle D going to be? 50. This angle is vertical to the 50 degree angle, right? Whereas, what do I know about angle E? Should be 130 because it is supplementary to 50. Okay? So, in your homework, you always have to give the reason why. Okay? So, the first ones, I'm just going to ask you to name the angles, kind of like with supplementary, complementary. Okay? Then the second part of the assignment, I'm going to say, okay, now I need you to tell me the measure and describe why. So, angles in a triangle. If you would grip a triangle and you rip all of these apart like they did here, what you are always going to find, which this is a fact that most of you know, we've been working with earlier this year, all the angles total to 180. So, if we are looking at a picture, like down here, and we have 64 and 26, we can add 64 and 26 together. What do we get when we add those two? 90. Which means my angle has to be 90 degrees that is missing down here. Does that make sense? Okay. So my angle that is missing is 90 degrees. Let's take a look at that middle one. We are going to add the 35 plus 45. So 35 plus 45, if I'm adding those two together, is going to give me 80. Does anyone know what this first kind of triangle is called when it has a 90 degree angle? It is called the right one. So this is 80. And because this angle right here is how many degrees then? 100 degrees. That makes it what kind of a triangle? When you have an angle over 90. Obtuse angle. So we're going to get into obtuse triangles later and talk about triangles also. So if this is 90, someone said, do I have to add 90 and 25 together? Or since I know this one is already 90, I know these two together total to 90. You could just take 90 and subtract 25, right? And 90 minus 25 gives us
65.
65. Okay? You always want to keep the degree symbol with it when you are looking at those, okay? So, as you are looking, this is the other reason it comes up a lot of times in your homework tonight. And this is one that's not as obvious, and it's a different type of angle. And it says the exterior angles of a triangle. And if you are reading that, please, Nikita.
The exterior angle of a triangle is the angle created by extending the side of a triangle. The exterior angle of a triangle is equal to the sum of the two interior angles on the other side of the triangle.
So notice they have it written like this. They say D equals A plus B. And this is one that people don't notice a lot of times in their homework. So if I know that this is 62 plus 35, since it's 62 plus 35, I can write, if I'm looking at that, 62 plus 35, which equals 97. So if I know this is 97, could I easily find this angle right here? Because what do I know about these two together? They are supplementary, right? So sometimes in your homework, you're going to be given different measures. So this time we're told this angle out here is 67. And I want you to know in this one that that's equal to 27 plus, we're going to call this angle x to start with, right? So what do you have to do to find x if it's x plus 27 equals 67? We're going to subtract 27, right, from 67. I'm just going to subtract it, right? Because if I know these two angles add to equal 67, I can take 67 and minus 27, which gives me 40 degrees. Now, I could also take, to find this angle, right? I know these two angles are supplementary, and I could take 180, and I could subtract 67. So what would the measure of this angle be? 113. 113. Now they didn't ask us to find this one, but I just want you to be aware of that when you look at your homework, okay? So, here, in this last picture that we are looking at, angle number 1 in relation to 68. How are those two related? What type of angles?
Right.
They are not right. They are supplementary. So when we are looking, we want to put, the angle should be 112. So please write down equals 112. So angle 1 equals 112. And someone asked if they could just write it as 112 degrees like this. Just put equal to 112 degrees, yes. But then you want to give the reason. And the reason for this one is it was supplementary, the 68 degree angle. The next one. So we know this is 68. And as you do some of your pictures, I would write in the information as you're looking at that. 112. Right? So now we know this is 112. What do we know angle 2 has to be? Angle 2 has to be 68 because in relation to the 68 degree angle, it is vertical. So again, 68 degrees. And again, you can write it and not write out the word degrees. Vertical to 68 degree angle. Now we're going to look up at the top, picture 3. Angle 3. What do we know about angle 3? It has to be 90, right? What about 4? 90. So we're going to put that in on our, and now we got to give a reason. What do we know about 3 in this angle? They are, because they're next to each other in the same line, straight line, supplementary. Both 3 and 4, you could use vertical, or someone said, I could say that it is supplementary to the other 90 degree angle, right? Supplementary to angle 3, and angle 3 was already 90. So just know as you look at these, there's more than one reason sometimes when you give it, but to make sure you're giving those different reasons, okay? All right, so now we gotta look at angle 5 and 6. We already know that we have a 90-degree angle and 68. Let's find angle 6 first. What do we know if we add these two together? That has to be the measure of angle 6. So this has to be equal to 90 plus 68.
158.
Okay? Which means, what does angle 5 have to be? We have to take 180 and subtract this number, right? Which means, when we are taking a look at angle 5 and 6, if I'm looking at those two, right? I should have angle 5. Hopefully you're doing your math right. And you got 22 degrees. And we had 158. I think I heard a couple of you say that as we were looking at it. So these total to equal 158 degrees. And this one is 22. Could you have added these two and subtracted that 158 to get the 22 first?
Yeah.
The nice thing about it is that if you add two called our alternate interior angles of our triangle to get this exterior one, if you are doing that, what you're going to find is that those two will always add. This 158 is the same as adding these two angles. So, your homework tonight.